Hello, dear students. Welcome back to our news channel. Students, in today's special podcast, we will explore an important and thought provoking issue that has affected millions of lives across India. It is child marriage, right? Students, although the practice of child marriage was outlawed almost a century ago, it remains an alarming social issue today. And what we will do? We will just walk through the history of child marriage in India. Okay, the laws that were created to stop it and the lasting impacts it has on young girls and society as a whole. तो child मैरिज के ऊपर आज हमारा डिस्कशन होगा, पॉडकास्ट रहेगा. हम हिस्ट्री में जो एक इंसिडेंट है, एक स्टोरी है, उसके बारे में भी सुनेंगे, समझेंगे और साथ ही साथ हम प्रेजेंट टाइम में क्या कंडीशन है चाइल्ड मैरिज की और रिसेंटली सुप्रीम कोर्ट का क्या वर्डिक्ट रहा है चाइल्ड मैरिज के रिगार्डिंग, वो भी हम देखेंगे. सो दिस पॉडकास्ट इज डिजाइन टू हेल्प understand the complexity of the issue and to inspire discussions about what can be done to bring about lasting change. So let's begin. Students, first we need to go back in time. Let's just go back in time to the year 1884. Yes. Imagine a young girl named Rukmabai who bravely stood up against a system that had forced her into a marriage when she was just a child. She was determined to say no to living with her husband. Rukmabai took her case to the Bombay High Court, and even though it was very unusual for a woman to defy such customs back then, she didn't give up. She argued that child marriage had ruined her life and she wanted to be free. Yes, you can see from the statement, sir, I'm one of those unfortunate Hindu women whose hard lot it is to suffer the unnameable miseries entailed by the custom of early marriage. This wicked practice has destroyed the happiness of my life. Rukmabai refused to join her husband and declared that she would subject herself to the maximum penalty under the law rather than to live with her husband. Her bold actions, students, you can imagine in the year 1884, her bold actions created ripples across the country. And although the court case wasn't immediately in her favor, it sparked conversations about the oppressive tradition of child marriage. Eventually, Rukmabai became one of the first practicing female doctors in India, and it inspired. She goes on to inspire generations of women to follow their dream despite societal pressure. Yes, so this is the fascinating story and full of inspiration about Rukmabai. Okay, and even students, I think 2 to 3 years back, the question was also asked on the Rukmaibai case in UPSC CSC prelims. So fast forward to today. Yes, we think कि अभी तो चाइल्ड मैरिज का इशू जो है वो अभी इरेडिकेट हो गया है. The reality is somewhat different. The struggle against child marriage is still very much alive. And while many laws have been passed to protect young girls, child marriages continue to happen at a shocking rate. And to look at the data, yes, just a second. Yes, when we look at the data, we'll realize that it is still present. Yes, as per the UNICEF data, yes, did you know that India has 1 in 3 of the world's child brides? Yes, here it is mentioned कि इंडिया पूरे वर्ल्ड में अगर हम देखें तो इंडिया की 1 in 3 जो चाइल्ड ब्राइड है वो इंडिया की है, अकॉर्डिंग टू द यूनिसेफ। यस, यूनिसेफ की रिपोर्ट क्या कह रही है कि इंडिया इज होम टू 223 millions of child bride, and sadly 102 million of them were married before they even turned 50. And despite the fact that the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act or PCMA was passed in the year 2006, yes, PCMA was passed in the year 2006, the issue remains widespread. So you might be wondering, why does this continue to happen if there are laws to stop it? Well, students, the reasons are complex. Poverty. Yes, poverty is the dominant cause of child marriages. It remains one of the main factors. Many families believe that marrying off their daughters at a young age will reduce their financial burden. And in some rural parts of India, parents marry off their daughters to save on wedding cost by combining the weddings of younger and older daughters. तो एक साथ कई बार ऐसा भी देखा गया है कि एक सिस्टर की शादी हो रही है, उसी के साथ ही ओल्डर सिस्टर और जो ओल्डर सिस्टर के साथ साथ बाकी जो यंगर सिस्टर्स है उनकी भी शादी कंबाइन कर देते हैं ताकि वेडिंग कॉस्ट का जो खर्चा है वो सेव किया जा सके। सो पॉवर्टी, गरीबी एक डोमिनेंट कॉज रहा है चाइल्ड मैरिज का। एंड स्टूडेंट्स, द सिचुएशन बिकम्स इवन वर्स व्हेन कम्युनिटीज आर डिस्प्लेस्ड। Displacement, whether due to natural disasters, conflicts, or even economic reason, it often destroys social networks that protect young girls. So this whole thing, it makes them more vulnerable to forced early marriages. But India isn't standing still. The laws against child marriage have been strengthened over the years. तो गवर्नमेंट ने, और इवन अगर हम बात करते हैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट का, जैसे रिसेंट एक वर्डिक्ट आया था अभी हाल ही में चाइल्ड मैरिज को लेके, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि पिक्चर एकदम ग्रिम है और कोई डिसीजन नहीं लिया जा रहा है। द लॉज अगेंस्ट चाइल्ड मैरिज have been strengthened over the years. For example, under the PCMA, yes, this is the Act against Protection of Child Marriage Act. Yes, this Act, इसके इस लॉ के तहत anyone who conducts or abates a child marriage can be punished with up to 2 years of rigorous imprisonment or a fine of up to 1 lakh or both. So punishment है, fine भी है, and the marriage itself can be made void if the girl challenges it in court. अगर जो गर्ल है जिसकी शादी हुई है वो कोर्ट में जाती है और ये बोलती है कि जो शादी को चैलेंज करती है तो वो अपने आप वो वॉइड भी हो जाएगी, राइट। हाउएवर, even if this law in place, with this law we have, enforcement remains a challenge, especially when we talk about social customs in rural areas. It is quite hard to change it overnight. And Supreme Court of India recently took up the issue again, reminding the country that more must be done to protect these young girls from being forced into early marriages. Right. And just a few days ago, Supreme Court led by Chief Justice D. Y. Chandrachud delivered a judgment which aimed at effectively implementing the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, PCMA. And this judgment shines a spotlight on just how urgent this issue remains, despite the law having been in place for 18 years. हालांकि 18 साल से ये लॉ है, लेकिन सबसे बड़ा इशू जो आपको पहले भी बताया कि एनफोर्समेंट का है, कि अभी भी अच्छे से इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो रहा है, एनफोर्स नहीं हो रहा है। And students, Supreme Court also refer to the historical plea of Rukma Bai, echoing her cry for justice over 100 years ago. In their judgment, the justices emphasized how critical it is to not only enforce the law but also educate and raise awareness about the harms of child marriage. After all, it's not just about stopping a wedding, it's about saving a child's future. Yes, these are the golden words said by the Supreme Court. So, what happens when a girl is married off too young? See, the effects are quite severe and it is going to last long throughout her life. Most child brides are forced to drop out of school, which limits their opportunities for a better life. एक तो स्कूल से ड्रॉप आउट कर दिया तो ऑब्वियस सी बात है उनकी एजुकेशन भी बंद हो गई है तो अपॉर्चुनिटीज भी लिमिटेड कर दी जाती है एंड दे ऑफन बिकम मदर्स व्हेन दे आर स्टिल चिल्ड्रन देमसेल्व्स सो दिस इंक्रीजेस द हेल्थ रिस्क फॉर बोथ द मदर एंड द बेबी तो अगर एक चाइल्ड ब्राइड जब एक बच्चे को जन्म देती है तो आप इमेजिन कर सकते हो कि उनकी जो हेल्थ है वो किस तरह रही होगी and being denied the chance to grow up in a safe and supportive environment often leads to feeling of helplessness and a lifetime of dependence तो एक ये जो फीलिंग है तो सिर्फ फिजिकल डैमेज नहीं होता है बल्कि जो मेंटल लेवल पर जो एक स्ट्रेस फैक्टर आता है इमोशंस आते हैं वो भी पूरे लाइफ लॉन्ग तक रहते हैं सो स्टूडेंट्स it's important to remember that child marriage is not just a legal issue, it's a human right issue. And girls, like everyone else, have the right to decide if, when, and whom they want to marry. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on what we have learned today. Child marriages continues to affect millions of lives in India. And despite there are laws meant to stop it, it's still continuing, right? And poverty, lack of education, and deeply rooted traditions are the driving forces behind this social evil. But there is a hope. By spreading awareness, supporting education for girls, and ensuring that laws like the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act are fully enforced, we can make a real difference. It's up to all of us to stand up against child marriage, just like Rukma Bai did all those years ago. Students, now as we wrap up today's episode, we need to understand that what we can do to help. Maybe it's just sharing what you have learned with others, starting conversations with your friends, or simply staying informed. See, small actions can lead to big changes, right? So, thank you for tuning in today's episode. We hope this podcast has given you a deeper understanding of the issue of child marriage in India and the need for collective action to combat it. Remember, every girl deserves a childhood, even every child deserves a childhood, an education, and a future free from forced marriage. So, until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and continue to ask questions about the world around you.